If you sit and think about it, in the grand scheme of things, life is incredibly short. As far as we know, we get this one physical chance to make it as amazing as possible. A lot of my life experiences have caused me to do a lot of soul searching, and that has allowed me to get very clear on what my dream life looks like. Every day, I make a conscious decision to do things that will help me get closer to that dream life. And that makes me live each day feeling fulfilled. Another woman doing the same is Madison Anaya of the Fearless Chase. In today's episode, I'm so excited to talk with Madison about how people can fearlessly chase a life they love. Welcome to the City Girl Savings Podcast. I'm Raya Reeves, founder and finance coach of City Girl Savings. I turned my life around with budgeting many years ago, and now I'm on a mission to help others do the same. I fully believe that you can enjoy your life on a budget, and this weekly show will focus on the intersection of money and the city girl lifestyle. Join me every week along with some special guests as I share my experiences, advice, and guidance on navigating life and money as an experience-loving millennial. Madison is the founder of Fearless Chase, a shop and podcast whose mission is to encourage others to create an intentional life they love based on their own definition of success. She lives right outside of Houston with her hubby, Alex, and Madison and I met through an online community years ago and always kept in touch. We finally met in person a few months ago for her Fearless Chase conference in Austin, where she graciously requested me to speak on the Defining Success panel. Madison, I am so excited for this conversation because I'm such an advocate for intentional living. Before we dive in, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I am so excited to be here, by the way. I'm stoked. I will say, I think I might throw you for a loop on this one because I never know how to fully answer this question. I'm like, how far back are we going? Are we talking like just right now? So just a little bit about me. As already mentioned, I am the shop owner and podcast host behind the Fearless Chase, and we're all about adding happy reminders to live intentionally. And so I know we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that into this episode. So I don't want to give too much away, but outside of that, yeah, I'm just married to my middle school sweetheart. I just started a new part-time job at Anthropology, and I'm just like, I don't know, I'm in a weird stage of life right now, but I'm loving it. And also like have no idea what I'm doing. And it's a good time though.
I feel like none of us really know what we're doing, right? I mean, like I'm a Virgo, so I always have the plan, but half the time it doesn't go according to plan. So I don't know what I'm doing half the time.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's like what I've come to terms with is I've always been the girl that has like the 5-year plan, but then every 2 months, the 5-year plan changes. And so now I'm just kind of embracing this, like have a plan, but hold it loosely and see where it takes you kind of season. And it's been interesting, but really good so far.
I love that. And now I'm curious, like what inspired you to start the Fearless Chase? And from whenever that time was, how has it changed up until now?
Oh my gosh, it has changed so much. I feel like it went through its own like puberty, honestly, because it started out in 2018 as a podcast. I, at the time, was working full time at a job that I didn't really love, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I had decided that I was going to quit school and start this podcast because that seemed, I don't know, like a smart decision at the time. And ultimately, I wanted to learn how other people had fearlessly chased after their own dreams, whatever that looked like. And I wanted to see, is there a through line here? Is there some sort of wisdom that I can take away from this? Because I don't know what I want to do. I just know that I'm a very passionate person and I wanted to help others just make the most out of their own lives. And I wanted to do the same. And so it started out as a podcast that grew into a community that I desperately needed for myself as well. At one point, I was a virtual assistant. I was a content strategist. Oh gosh, the list I feel like has gone on and on. It's pivoted several different times, but at the bulk core of the entirety of the brand, it has always been centered around intentional living. And so right now, as of the last 2 months, we just threw a conference that I was so excited to finally get to meet you at. You did such an amazing job on our panel. And we've done some retreats. I've got the shop now and the podcast, and I have never felt so in alignment as I do right now, but it's taken a very long time to figure out what that was.
I mean, I got a little bit of goosebumps when you were speaking because, at first you talked about your life and how, things are kind of flowing the way they're supposed to flow, whether you know what that looks like or not. But it also sounds like the same for your business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's okay. It's been, like I said, about the puberty thing. So, in your 20s, you're really trying to figure out who you are and what is important to you and what your values are. And I live in my hometown and I'm desperately trying to get out. Any chance I get, I am going to take it. But I feel like when you never leave your hometown, it's really hard to figure out what those things are. Like, who am I outside of this person I've always been? And your 20s are kind of that avenue for you to be able to express that and explore that. And so it's been interesting to do that almost publicly with a business and a brand.
yeah, I mean, kudos to you for sharing that because, it is hard, especially when you know that kind of being in the same place in the same environment kind of keeps you where you're at, but you're still powering through. You're still creating a company that helps people live intentionally. And you're doing the same. Like you are the fearless chase. And I love that. And the fearless chase, in my opinion, is not, okay, rainbows and butterflies. No, it's unknown. It's scary. There's a fork in the road. Which way do I go? And I feel like you sharing your experience like makes it okay for people to know that the fearless chase is unknown, but it's also exhilarating.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that because at times it can be really scary when you're in that space, when you realize that you have less control than you thought. But at the same time, like I think that's why I leaned so heavily into the community element very early on because I needed that. I needed to know that there were other people who were wanting a lifestyle different than what I was portrayed to as the only one to work towards, if that makes sense. I grew up in the suburbs. There was one definition of success. You work towards getting a 2-story house in a nice neighborhood with a boat and a pool, and you go on a cruise and maybe go skiing once a year. Like that was the idea. And for a while, that's what I was working towards. And I was, kind of on that path and just feeling like, I don't know that this is for me, but I don't really know what else there is. And just hearing other people's stories and what they wanted out of life and seeing where they grew up and what was normal to them just really got my wheels spinning about opportunities that I could open up for myself if I wanted to.
Oh, I love that. And I think, it really leads perfectly into this next question I have for you. The mission of your company is to encourage people to live a life they love based on whatever success looks like to them. However, in your opinion, why is it so easy to equate success to what society says? And it sounds like this is something that you did at a point in your life because that's all you've known. But
Yeah.
I know you're not the only one. A lot of people do this. And why do you think that is? Why is it so easy for us to say, okay, society says it's this, so success must be this?
I think that it's just like, all of your teachers growing up, all of your mentors, all adult figures, everyone's kind of guiding you in one direction. They're all wanting you to have a better life than they did. They're all wanting you to quote unquote succeed. And when I say that, I think most of the time what people mean is that you're, financially stable, you're contributing to society, yada, yada. But in their heads, that often looks like one thing. And anything outside of that is a risk. And a risk is a risk. Sometimes it pays off and sometimes it doesn't. And I think there's just that pressure, especially for me, like everyone around me was wanting that same thing. And so every person who I would ask advice to, and this is something that Alex and I, my husband, we've been talking about a lot lately because we are wanting to move to California, which I know you've done before. So if you ask anyone in Texas, like if you tell them, oh, I want to move to California, the first thing they say is, oh, that's so expensive. Like they just want to shut it down immediately because that seems like so astronomical. So why would you do that? That's not what success looks like here. You're not going to be able to get a big house and a big lot of land and all of that. And I'm like, I don't know how to tell you that I don't want that. I already have that. I don't want that. Like that's what you want. And so we've had a lot of conversations lately about like who we are seeking out advice from or who we are allowing to speak wisdom into us, because whoever you are receiving advice from, they are going to eventually lead you to where they are, because that's what their suggestions are. That's what, whether they know it or not, their suggestions are going to lead you to their own definition of success. I don't think it's possible to do it otherwise. And so, like if my parents who have only ever lived here, who think that that's like the best thing to do, all of their advice is going to lead me here. Not that it's invalid to, listen to them, but just kind of keeping that in mind as you're trying to figure out who to take advice from and stuff. But back to your question, ultimately, I think it's just a matter of pressure and not seeing representation of anything other than.
Yeah. And I mean, if you tell me you're moving to California, I'll say, so exciting. What part? Where are we going?
Yeah.
And I love that your response is like, hey, whatever you think moving to California means to you, it means something totally different to me. And, I hope that you share that with those people, right? Because sometimes people don't recognize what they're doing or what they're saying or how it impacts you. So I think it's like a great opportunity to help just open someone else's mind up.
Oh, yeah. And that's what I even had a conversation with a friend this weekend of them saying, I would never live out there. You can get twice the amount of house out here for that price or whatever. And I'm like, but that's not important to me. That's important to you. What's important to me is all of these other list of things. And then they're like, okay, I mean, I guess I could see that, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's all I'm asking. Like, is for you to just like keep an open mind that other people might want other things. And that's totally okay. Like,
yes. And like, just support me, right? Like, you don't have to question what I'm doing. If I ask for your advice, okay, great, give it to me, but don't be mad if I don't take it, right? Or if I don't agree. But yeah, and I agree with you. I think it's just the pressure of society. And I think the fact that we have direct line of sight into what the wealthy are doing, it just automatically kind of puts blinders on us. Like, okay, well, if Kim Kardashian is in a private jet traveling, like that's what success looks like. And that's really not true.
Yeah. But even if you break it down smaller, right? Like down to even the pressure around what time you should be getting married, what time you should be having kids. Like in big cities, most people are usually putting that off until like their mid 30s. Like it's not a weird thing to be 36 and having your first child in the city. Out in the suburbs or out in the country, people are like, oh my gosh, like freaking out. And I was having a conversation with a friend this weekend too, the same friend, about saying like, yeah, I definitely want to wait several more years until we have kids. I'm about to be 28. And she was like, it's just going to be harder on your body. And I was like, it's going to be hard on my body no matter what. I've never had a kid, like either way, all I'm going to know is my personal experience. So it's just, I don't know. People are funny when it comes to sharing things that's different what they want. And it's hard to navigate those conversations in a way that is saying, hey, I respect that what you want is cool for you, but I want you to respect the same for me. And like, I don't know why it's such a weird thing to get through people's heads sometime though.
I mean, I think it's, just conditioning. And I totally relate to you. I mean, my boyfriend and I have been together 11 years. So you can imagine people are like, well, are you getting married? Why aren't you married? Like 11 years, like where's the ring? And I'm just like, we're happy. Like the way things are going, like we are very much happy. If it happens in the future, great. If it doesn't, great. And like me personally, I've shared this in past episodes, but like growing up, I had trust issues. Like I saw infidelity in my family. So like for me, a loyal boyfriend beats a cheating husband any day. And like, that's just how it works for me, right? It doesn't have to work for someone else, but explaining that over and over sometimes is, exhausting, but hopefully it does help people see that there are more than one way to do things.
Yeah, definitely. And I totally relate on the, like, it's exhausting to constantly feel like you have to explain yourself. And even sometimes like I'll finally like build up the confidence in myself to be like, okay, this is my definition of success. And I like gear myself up for one day when that conversation hits or when that confrontation hits. And then in the moment, I'm just like, I don't know. I don't want to be in this conversation anymore. Like, how can I just get out of this? Because I don't want to deal with your opinions. And I don't know. It's like all that confidence kind of backs away a little bit when I feel like I'm the only one in the room who's not in alignment with whatever their thought process is.
Yeah, I feel that, but I also think like when you recognize that, it's like, okay, we got to be in a different room, okay, like, all right, this isn't the room for me.
Yeah. Or at least like it can be, but also put yourself in those other rooms where you're not the only one all the time.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There's this quote from Jim Rohn I always think about, and it is, you are the average of the 5 people you hang around,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like, if you're hanging around, everybody's married, everybody has kids, and, they work 9 to 5, like you might be in that position or you may be out of it, but feeling like, okay, my circle like doesn't get me. And so I
Right.
think, having that expanded network does make a difference.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. For me, when I turned 30, and this was a few years ago, I really realized how important City Girl Savings was for me. And I had decided that like I wanted to run this business full time. And I like put the stake in the ground and said, like, I don't need to make millions. I just need to be able to spend my time doing what I love and, make sure like my bills are paid. And, for 3 years, I worked towards that and I made choices and decisions that helped me get there. For anyone, who actually wants to hear that story, they can listen to episode 10. But, once I had put the stake in the ground to say, okay, this is what success looks like to me, it's almost like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. And then, of course, the fear of failing came, right? But I had to like work through that. But I'm curious, like, how have you defined success for yourself? Like, how have you gotten to a place where you said, okay, this is what success looks like for me?
I think it's kind of like what I was talking about earlier of being in my 20s, getting closer to 30, getting closer to trying to figure out who the heck I am and who am I outside of all of these thoughts and values and opinions that I've grown up around. A lot of questioning, why do I think this way? And why do I say that's important to me? I don't even agree with that anymore. Why did I, that sort of thing, and removing myself from a lot of the communities that I was part of or situations that I was a part of. And I think that helped me to really decide what was important to me. I think that defining what success means to you is ultimately boils down to, what do you value? What do you care about? What's important to you? And how can you incorporate that into your daily life? Right? Like, your definition of success, it sounds like such a like self-help term, but ultimately it's that cliche of, when you're on your deathbed, what do you want to be proud of in your life? What's going to matter to you most? And then how can you fill most of your days doing that? And so I don't know. I think it's been that, and the combination of, I tried it the other way and I didn't like it. And I didn't feel like I belonged and I didn't feel fulfilled. And it just was like, there's got to be more. And so I think being fed up with that, and then also being like, okay, if it's not that, then what else is it? And just trying different things. And honestly, like, I'm still figuring it out. And I think it'll always be a process. I think your definition of success will change in different seasons that you go through, right? Like, if you become a parent, now you're going to be a whole different definition of success. Maybe some of that definition is going to include being able to sleep through the night. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not necessarily something that I am always having to worry about. For me, I'll just share in case anyone wants a even different version. My definition of success right now looks like getting to move out to San Diego and working at farmers markets, like with my shop. I want to do pop-up shops at farmers markets. And then I want to pack up, go home, eat lunch, and then go do surf lessons at the beach. Like, that is my dream life right now. And I would have never thought that. If you were to ask me 10 years ago, like my senior year of high school, I would have thought that I would have had 2 kids by now. I would have had the house in the suburbs with the pool. And like, it's so different from what I thought. But at the same time, it's like exciting. And I'm like, wow, it's so great when you actually give yourself the freedom to ask yourself, what do I actually want? And why do I want it? And just like explore that. I don't know.
Wow. I feel like you said so many like good pieces of wisdom there. One thing that I think resonated with me was like your self awareness. You were able to define success for yourself because you were able to ask yourself, what matters to me? What do I value? What's important to me? And I think people struggle with that because, they don't teach self awareness in school. They don't teach you to like recognize your feelings or like understand like what you're actually going through. And so I think that's a huge piece of defining success is knowing yourself. Was there something that either happened or like can you think of an instance where like your self-awareness kind of turned on, like the light switch turned on and you became aware of like, I don't like this. This is not like the life for me. Like, did something happen for you to be this self-aware individual?
I think I've always been a very self aware person. I've always been a very emotional person. I have been called dramatic and overly sensitive my whole life. And so I think I've always been very in tune with my feelings. However, as far as like when I started to really think about, it's kind of a funny, weird story. So when I very first got into the personal development world, I had gone to a women's conference. And that was the very first time that I ever even realized that other options were really available to me. And then a few years into that, I realized that a lot of the personal development world is a lot of smoke and mirrors. And I no longer like trusted a lot of that anymore. And I felt super uncomfortable around that. And I still have a weird relationship with that now. But I would say that that was the start of it. And it was also the start of it in another way too. It was the start of like, hey, there's all these possibilities out there, but it also doesn't have to look like this one either. Cause I think I had just taken this idea of just grabbing onto someone else's definition of success as a kid. And then I just moved it over to all these personal development people. And so I still wasn't really figuring out what I wanted. I just was like, oh, that looks cool. I want your life. And then I realized all the behind the scenes of those people's lives. And I was like, oh, icky, not sure I love that. That's not aligning. And then that combined with everything that happened in 2020 and just I think 2020 was a huge pivotal moment for so many people because they had to be questioned on what their values were from literally everything that happened in 2020. I could list all of
Yes.
the things, but it really forced you to ask yourself, what do I care about? What matters to me? What are my opinions? Because I had never really given a lot of thought to a lot of those things. And when that time came and that pressure came, I realized, holy crap, I've got a lot of work to do on myself and just on the world around me. And it's been like a messy, I don't want anyone to listen to this and think like, oh, I'm just going to like go out there with a little journal and just like figure it out this afternoon. I think that's what I'll do this afternoon is I'll just figure out what my values are and that'll be that. I think it's a process. And for me, at least, it hasn't been like the most smooth, easy to tell story process. It's just kind of been this messy life of just events back to back and constantly questioning where I stand on those certain things and feeling alone in a lot of conversations of where I'm at and being like, oh, I feel weird when everyone in this room is saying this. Maybe I should listen to that feeling. And when I'm in a safe place with a safe person, which for me happens to be Alex, a lot of times when we're in the car, that's when we have those safe conversations of, hey, I don't know, like, I don't know that I think that anymore. Or, hey, what do you think about this? Because I'm starting to feel like what I thought is not actually what I think. And I may have been wrong. Actually, you know what? The very first time I ever realized that I could be wrong on something is I had taken, when I was still going to school, I had taken a sociology class and my professor was teaching on like subconscious bias towards people. And if you were to ask me like, oh, do you have any biases towards people? I would have been like, no, oh my God, I love everyone. And then when she was really talking about it and all these actions, I was like, oh my God, I was wrong. I was wrong. How do I go around telling everyone you're all wrong? But it's okay because we can fix it. No one wants to hear that. So, but I remember the way that she delivered it. She was such a cool professor. Like I loved her so much. I keep trying to track her down to be friends with me. And just the way that she delivered it, I don't think I could have ever had such a grateful moment to be wrong. Like no one wants to be wrong. That's like such a
Right.
pride just smashed down to the ground. But the way that she delivered it with such grace and such just like, hey, this is a safe place that we can talk about this changed me forever. That is the pinpoint moment. I don't know why that didn't come up earlier, but for sure that was the pinpoint moment. And that was before I ever even started a podcast. So I guess it was that little thing. And then that kind of just went to the back of my head. And then all of this other stuff started adding and stacking and ended up to where we are now.
Again, so many things. Like I have like 10 thoughts. I think my first thought is I love that you shared that about your professor. And what I think, made the difference, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is you didn't go into instant defense mode because of how she explained it. Right. And I think a lot of times, to your point, when people hear they're wrong or no, you shouldn't think like this, like their defenses go up and they don't, see the bigger picture, see the other side of things. So I love that you had such a great experience from being wrong, essentially, and that you were able to take that information and really think about it and apply it to your own life and see like, oh, hold on, like my mind is open now. And I don't think everybody has that type of experience, but I think people can find that on their own. To your point, it's not like, okay, let me go journal and now I know, but it's just asking the questions and peeling back the layers and thinking about your past and thinking about how you were raised or things that triggered you and like getting to the root of why. I think a lot of those things can help people really decide like what they want.
Yeah, definitely. And if you have the ability to go into conversations with walls down, which is so hard, it's so hard not to get defensive. But if you're able to do that, then you're able to hear the other side. And that changes everything. And I wish that there were more conversations like that, but it is extremely hard. But once you have that ability, then you can have that self-awareness to go like, oh, maybe there are some other things in my life that I might potentially have been wrong about before too. And not that everything is always right or wrong. Sometimes it's just a matter of what is your opinion on this? And that can trigger that sequence of events in your life to be able to question or even solidify what your opinions and thoughts and values are. I think everyone should question what that is. Like I grew up in church and it was always like, you should never question. You should never question. I think you should do the exact opposite. Like if you never question it, how do you know if that's what you really think? How do you know? You know what I mean? Like I feel like you should question everything in your life and make sure that it's still something that you believe in and is still something important to you. If you have like a really strong opinion about something, maybe that is something you could journal out. Why do you have that strong opinion? Where did you very first hear that opinion? Who was the first person to instill that into you? And do you still align with that? Does that align with what you think like is important in life?
Are you tired of wondering which moves to make next with your money? Do you need some guidance on whether to pay off debt, save, or focus on something else? Get my free Money Moves packet today and start making impactful money moves instantly. Go to citygirlsavings.com/moves to download your Money Moves packet now. I have to know, when's your birthday?
December. I'm a Sagittarius. I know you're going to ask that, but yeah, December 9th.
How'd you know? I mean, my dad was a Sagittarius and I see a lot of similarities and it's really, really cool. But I actually want to like transition a little bit to positivity and intentional living. Like for me, I've always been like a person who tries to think positive. And in the past, I've tried to preach the power of positivity and people would mistake it for almost like acting like bad or tragic things don't happen. Would you agree that intentionally living a life you love doesn't mean there won't be sad times?
I think that those are two completely different things. I think that living intentionally is just the act of being intentional with your actions, being intentional with your time, just being conscious in your life instead of just going through the motions every single day. It's so easy. Heck, I did it today. Scroll TikTok for 2 hours and you just numb out. And then you get to the end of the week and you're like beating yourself up because you still don't have that life that you wanted and you feel behind and you feel like everyone else has got all these cool things going on, but you, when in actuality, it's like you haven't done anything to add any of that to your life. And not in like a shame. This is not coming from a place of shame. It's just let me just open up your mind to this conversation of how are we spending our time? If you want to spend your time scrolling TikTok, girl, do it. Like I'll be right on the couch next to you. But just being aware of how you're spending your time and making sure that that's important to you. That is a whole different thing from, will nothing sad ever happen to you? Of course it will. This world is full of heartbreak. Like it's inevitable. And, you had mentioned like people misinterpreting it. I think that there is the conversation of toxic positivity, which is let's shove everything under the rug. Everything's fine. We can just like positive think our way out of this situation. But I know that's not what you're doing. So a lot of my family was we don't talk about things. If we don't talk about it, it's not there. I don't know how they ended up with me. If I did not look exactly like my family, I would honestly think I was adopted, because I am like communicator city over here. Like, I want to talk about everything. I have a lot of feelings. And I think that you can still find the silver lining in things, right? Like, I'm an Enneagram 7. If you're familiar with the Enneagram, it is my go-to to find the positive in everything. It's my coping mechanism. It is so I don't hurt so much, that I can find the positive in anything. However, like, it's still so important to still acknowledge that heartache. It's still important to feel that pain, because if you do just shove it under the rug, you are only delaying when that pain is going to come. And I feel like the longer you delay it, the worse it is. There's this song by Johnny Swim. Do you know them?
Mm-mm.
Did you ever watch Fixer Upper?
Yeah.
Okay, so they sing the Coming Home song. They sing the theme
Oh.
song. Anyways, Johnny Swim is an amazing duo. They're so cool, and they've got a really unique sound to them. But they have this song, and I'm going to butcher the lyrics now that I'm finally bringing it up. It's something along the lines of like, if it matters, let it matter. Like, I want it to hurt. Basically, like, if you lose someone and they matter to you, you want it to hurt, because they deserve that. Like, they deserve all of you. I personally don't think you can only love something or only have positive and not also hold space for the rest as well. I don't know. I feel like I'm getting too deep on this podcast right now.
No, I'm loving this.
But I don't know. I think that's like the point of life. You can't appreciate the positive in life and appreciate all the beauty and all of the amazing, just like depth of love, without also recognizing that it is temporary. And that's why it's so important. So yeah, I think living intentionally, and I think those are two different camps.
Yeah, I would agree. And, maybe I didn't phrase the question the right way. I think you can choose to be positive. I'm not saying, okay, you don't feel what you feel. Like, tragic and sad things are always going to happen, right? But I do believe that we get to make the choice to wake up every day and choose to see the good.
Oh,
And
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
yeah. And I think like that in and of itself is intentional living, right? Like,
Oh,
we're
for sure.
making the intention to see the good. And I just remember this conversation I had in the City Girl Savings Facebook group where, I was talking about like being positive, and someone took it as, well, how can I be positive when XYZ happened? And, I responded to her and said, hey, like, XYZ happened to me as well. And, I'm still choosing to see the good. I'm not acting like it didn't happen. I'm not acknowledging that it didn't happen, but I am choosing to make the most of like my time and where I put my energy. And I think you can be positive and live an intentional life, and bad things, sad things can happen, but you can still be positive. Like, and you can make that choice. Like, when my dad died, I did exactly what you said. I kind of like brushed it under the rug, tried not to feel it. And I had like this battle with myself because I am naturally positive, but I felt guilty for being positive because, my best friend wasn't here. And obviously going through therapy and grief counseling, like all of that helped. But I realized that I don't have to feel guilty for being positive, right? And I can make the choice to be positive and still acknowledge, like, hey, sad things happen, but I'm still positive. That's really what I was trying to get at.
Yeah. Well, okay. So to carry on with that part of the conversation, then my perspective is that there is this power of and. You can have that and this. You can feel sad and happy. You can feel appreciative and heartbroken. Like, I personally, gosh, that's one thing that I have been so frustrated in the business world, or just in life in general. Everyone's always about niche down, niche down. It's all about one thing. If you can't be multi-passionate, because that's irresponsible and you're never going to get anywhere in life, because I remember someone telling me like, well, you could either like go up one ladder all the way, or like what you're trying to do is you're just trying to go halfway up all these millions of ladders. And I'm like, but I love all the millions of ladders. I am a multi-passionate person, and I see the value in holding space for more than just one thing. Like, we are such deeper creatures than we give ourselves credit for. You don't only feel sad. That's why we have feelings like bittersweet. Like that in
Yeah,
itself is sad and happy. It is, you know what I mean? Like but yeah, I definitely think that part of intentional living is choosing how you want to view the world, how you want to view your life. And that is something that if it doesn't come naturally to you, would take a lot of effort and work, but isn't impossible for sure.
absolutely. And thank you for adding that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you phrase it so much more eloquently than I do. And that's something that I do want to work on because I don't want the message to come across as toxic positivity, like you said, because that is a huge thing. But I firmly believe that we have a choice and we can choose to see the good.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about like what led you to the fearless chase, but I would love to hear more of the entrepreneurial side of your journey. Like, I'm just gonna guess based on this conversation that like maybe your parents work in corporate or they don't have businesses. I don't know. You can tell me if that's true or not. But like, what did your journey to becoming a business owner and an entrepreneur actually look like? And did you learn anything along the way?
Oh my gosh, I could write a whole book about everything. I don't think anyone could be an entrepreneur and not write an entire book on it. Yeah, no, both of my parents, my dad has worked he's a plant operator and has done that my entire life. And my mom has done several different things. She was the neighborhood nanny up until I was like in middle school. So I think that's why I'm so good with like community. We always had a lot of kids at my house. I think that's also why I'm so bossy. I laid down the rules real quick. My house, my rules. And then she worked retail. She was a realtor. So she had done a couple of different things as well. And for me, I think I've just kind of always had that spirit a little bit. Like I said, I never knew what I wanted to do when I grew up. One day it was a vet, one day it was this, but it was never like, I know I want to be a teacher when I grow up and now I'm going to be a teacher. It was for real. Like my realistic idea was like, I'm going to be Hillary Duff. Okay. So, I didn't have that whole plan set out for me, but I can remember in high school, like, deciding I wanted to make some extra cash. So I made some like Pillsbury cookies and brownies and I take them to school the next day and sell them for like 3 times as much. And I did that for like a few weeks in a row, just making extra cash or babysitting, anything to like make extra money so that I could hang out with my friends and be able to like pay for the gas in my car and all of that. But I didn't actually start my own real business until I guess the podcast really. And just had taken all those different avenues. I think the main thing that I have learned in being an entrepreneur is just knowing what you want. Like that is the hill I'm willing to die on of define what success means to you because I have paid the price for not. I have followed after everyone else's life and not even consciously doing it, right? Like, and we all do it to some degree a little bit. You see an influencer and you're like, oh, she's so cool. Her life looks amazing. If I buy those leggings she's promoting, I'm going to be happy like she is. I'm going to have an amazing family like whatever it is, right? It's lifestyle marketing is what it is. We're all like, I can consciously know that and still fall for it, which is always ridiculous. But I wish that earlier on I had just been confident in just doing my own thing. When I very first started, I don't know, 23. And I was so insecure about my age. Like, cause everyone around me that I was learning from and building connections with, they were all like had 10 years on me at least and definitely pointed it out all the time. So I made sure to not do anything to try to appear my age. Now I am the complete opposite. Now I'm like, whatever, best friend sleepover vibes left and right. Don't care. I am doing my own thing. But I wish that I had done that sooner because I feel like I wasted, look, both in my personal life and in my business, I feel like I wasted the majority of my early 20s through mid 20s trying so hard to make sure that everyone else around me thought I was responsible and that everyone else around me thought that I was making good decisions because I had deviated from the path. I got married at 21, bought a house at 21, quit school. Like those were out of order things. You're supposed to, quote unquote, where I grew up, finish getting a degree, be a teacher, be a nurse, be something that makes sense to people at a dinner party when you're explaining what you do. Then you get into that job and you have a good boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever your situation is. And then you get married and you have kids. And like, that's the right? Like so on and so forth. We all know the story. And so I had already kind of gone a little out of order. And I remember when I got married at 21, like I just knew I could just see it in people's eyes. Like all of my like older people around me, I just felt the judgment of, oh, you're going to make a mistake. Like you're going to end up divorced later. Like you just feel it. And even if it was all in my head, either way, placebo effect or not, I felt a lot of pressure. And so now that I'm, closer to 30, I'm like, oh my God, I do not care anymore. Like I just don't, to some small degree, I'm sure I definitely do sometimes, but not nearly to the level that I did back then. I would not make a single decision in my business without confirming it with 8 other people. Hey, what do you think about the name The Fearless Chase? Hey, what do you think about this logo? What do you think about this color? What do you think about blah, 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 blah. And of course, everyone had their own opinions. And as mentioned earlier, they're all leading me to where they are. And so it's just like this whole long lesson of learning to trust yourself, learning to just be yourself, learning to be okay with that, and to be okay with the fact that you are not going to be perfect right out the gate. And you're going to have to eat a big slice of humble pie either way. So you might as well do it as yourself and not trying to imitate someone else. Like, oh gosh, like even the earlier episodes of our podcast, I tell people, please do not listen to those because I sound like a whole different person. The language I used, the way that I talked, the cadence that I talked, the like everything was just whoever I was currently being so heavily influenced by. And I'm at a point now where I'm still not ready to come back to reading or listening to like personal development podcasts or books or nonfiction book. Like I'm not ready to come back to that because I felt so, how do I say this? I felt really hurt by it, but hurt by myself because I was the one who put too much trust in other people.
Mm.
And it's not like they even directly did anything to me. It's just that I realized that I no longer aligned with what I was signing up for, essentially. And I saw too much behind the curtain kind of things, both in church and in a lot of these people that I was looking up to in business. And so now I'm at a place where I'm learning what that looks like now. Like, what is my own intuition? What do I think is the best decision? Like, what aligns with my personal values, opinions, goals, dreams, values, and going based off of that instead of, oh, I wonder what so-and-so would think. Like, oh, I wonder if this would stand out to them. I wonder if they would think that that was a good idea. Like, who cares? I think it's cool. So I'm going to do it because it's my freaking life that I have to live every day. They're not getting up and doing that every day, So
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Once again, I have so many thoughts. One thought I have was I feel like the older we get, we just have more experiences. And the more experiences we have, it leads us to this place of, okay, what's really important, right? And everything else, like, thank you for your opinion, but I'm doing what I want to do regardless. So I think it comes with time naturally. But I also think it comes with, like, to your point, knowing what you want. And if you do know that early on, it makes a difference. Like for me, we've talked about this on your podcast. Like, I wanted to be an actress. Like when I was little, I had a tutor who like opened my eyes to the world of acting in Austin, and I was obsessed. And I was a girl on a mission. Everything I did led me to California to pursue acting. Everything I did in California was, okay, how do I revolve this around auditioning? How do I make sure I can be here and then be there? And because of that, I was often called, like nonchalant or, oh, she doesn't care about anybody but herself, which wasn't true. I just knew what I wanted. And so anything that didn't get me to that or get me closer to that or took me away from that, I was able to like turn down and say no to it. And now thinking back, like, obviously the people who would say those things were in their early 20s. So I don't think they understood what I was really trying to do. So, I'm going off on a tangent, but like your story made me think about that. And, I wish more people understood that, at that point in time, because it can make a world of difference. And you don't want to live a life like, I wish I had, or I regret this. Like, granted, better late than never. Right. But yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And I think it's okay for people to not care about what other people think, even if those people truly matter to them.
Yeah. That's like the hard thing too, right? Because we do care about these people and we do value their opinions, at least, for the people that you do. But it's like, how do you say, okay, I value your opinion and I think I still want to do this. And it means nothing against you. It literally has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me and trusting my own intuition and trusting the fact that if I don't do this, I will always wonder what if. Oh my God. I'm like having this flashback to this super embarrassing cringe moment. I was probably like 16 in the car with my dad, and he was trying to give me some life lesson. I don't know. I don't even remember what the lesson was. And I said, look, Dad, I am just not one of those people that can just learn from other people. Like, I have to just learn it for myself. So you're just going to have to let me learn my own lessons. And
Look at you.
like now I'm like, oh my God, you should have just listened. Like, but it's true. Sometimes, we like, if you're wired like that, like me, there's just really no other way to learn it other than just doing it, because you will always just play these scenarios in your head of like, oh, if I had never gone to California, then I wouldn't have known. If I had never, gone to that audition, I wouldn't have known, like whatever that is. It's like, again, you're the one who has to live your life, and you're the one who has to face those consequences, whether they're positive or negative. And I don't know, but it's also hard to being on the other end, right? Like, it definitely can bother me or hurt my feelings when people don't take my advice or opinion too. And this is a good reminder, even just having this conversation, to be like, oh yeah, we can play both sides of this coin. We are both people in this scenario. And so just kind of keeping that in mind too, when other people maybe don't take your advice or they don't want what you want, and being like, okay, it's not what I would want, but okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. My boyfriend needs to hear that. He's very much, if I give you my advice, you need to do what I tell you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, people value your opinion, but people have to make their own choices. And we, as people who give advice, like, have to be okay with that. And it's just ego, right? And we all have
It's
them.
totally,
We
yes.
all feel it. Like, it just is what it is.
And then we cannot go on to this, okay, well, then I'm just going to wait for them to fail because they should have taken my advice. Like,
no, we can't do that. Definitely not. And also too, if they fail, right? Like, if that situation comes, also not having it, well, I told you so kind of response, like, that's not helpful.
It's not. You can say it all you want in your head, but do not let those words leave your lips, because like everyone in the situation already knows that, A, and B, even if they had taken your advice, they probably like could still end up in the same situation. Did you watch, is it called Look Both Ways, the new movie on Netflix about this girl who gets pregnant or not pregnant on her senior graduation night?
No.
Okay, it's
what
really good.
This?
It's got the girl from Riverdale in it, the blonde, and I can't remember her name right now. But basically, it's this storyline that branches off into two paths of what it would have been if she ended up getting pregnant and what her life would have looked like versus if it hadn't and what that would have looked like. And it plays, I want everyone to go and just like watch this movie immediately, because it pairs so well to what we're talking about. Because in both scenarios, heartache happens. In both scenarios, they still run into the same people sometimes. And depending on which life they went down, those people have more significance or not. And the moral of the story, I don't want to ruin it for anyone, but basically the moral of the story is that it works out either way. And so it's a really good, healthy reminder, I think, for everyone to watch that movie. If they're stressing out about their life right now, I'll just speak directly. If you are stressing out about feeling behind or feeling like you should have done that, you should have started sooner, or you should have whatever, beating yourself up about where you're at in life, go watch that movie, please, because it is just really encouraging to know that either way, like, you will figure it out, because you always have and you always will. You know what I mean? Like, you've gone through really hard things. Every person listening has. And I think we forget that. And then when the next crisis hits, even if it's just a minor inconvenience, we just like lose our minds and think that we've never been through anything hard, because our trauma has like numbed out all the other parts. And you just got to give yourself more credit.
Yeah. And also too, like, this might be an unpopular opinion, but like, when I experience like different problems or like new issues, I tell myself it's because I'm on a new level. Like, I am not going to have the same problems all the time. Otherwise, I'm staying the same. So if I'm experiencing like new inconveniences or harder problems, it's just because I am growing and leveling up as a person. And so I don't welcome problems. Please don't get me wrong, but once again, I choose to see that as a sign that I am like moving in the direction of where I want to be. And I think that's a good approach.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, like the challenges that come in life is what shapes us into who we are. And I guarantee you, you and I and everyone listening would attribute a lot of who we are as people to those hardships. If everything
Yes.
was perfect and everything was great and everything was easy, we'd honestly probably be like losers of humans. Like we would not be like A, interesting, B, have anything to talk about, C, haven't learned anything. And so those hardships, as much as they suck and they really do, they're so important in our life story and give us the ability to relate to others in a way that we may not have ever been able to before. And to me, being able to communicate with others and relate with people and be in just relationship with other people around me, that is so, so important. Like I am an extrovert, like textbook extrovert. So I don't know. I just find so much value in that, but you won't catch me saying that when I'm like boohooing about whatever it currently is. I'm just going to keep it real. I'm like, this sucks and I hate everything.
I love that. Oh my gosh. And you're talking to like an introvert. So you bring out like the extrovertedness of me. And I appreciate that. You have such a great way of doing that. You always have.
Oh, you're so sweet.
So as we kind of get to close, I want your advice on this. If someone is struggling to find their purpose or they don't know what their dream life looks like, do you have any advice to give them that can help maybe make those things a little bit more clear?
I think it is just really starting to question yourself. Like, put yourself through a job interview, put yourself through a first date and get to know yourself. Like I asked my almost 90-year-old great aunt, we were out to dinner the other night, and I said, what's your favorite food? Like, what's your favorite type of food? Is it like Thai, Italian, Mexican? And she looked at me and she said, I've never thought about that before. And I was like, how have you never thought about that before? Like, that's so wild to me that you've gone this much in life and you've never thought about what your favorite thing is.
Whoa.
And whereas if you get stuck in a car with me, either I'm sorry or you're welcome, depending on your level of tolerance. But I'm going to ask you everything about you because I just want to get to know you. And also like, I want to see what you like and see what I can relate to. So just ask yourself questions. I think that there's a lot of suggestions and advice out there on how to find your purpose and how to find your dream life. And it's so overwhelming. And a lot of times it's not a one size fits all. I think that where everyone can start is just get to know yourself better and ask yourself, what are all your favorites and why? And what are your opinions about literally anything and everything and why? If you have an opinion about something, like I want this to be like a trigger reaction thought that you have. Every time you share an opinion, I want you to internally ask yourself why. If you're like, oh man, Harry Styles looked so good today. Why? Okay. And then, well, why does his hair look like that make you think that he looks great? Okay. And then just keep asking yourself, even if it's little things, those things will start to eventually unfold into deeper things. And just like, I don't know, I feel like so many people walk around and they don't know who they are.
Yes.
And I know that because like, I feel that way a lot of times. And I don't know that you'll ever like fully know the answer because we're always growing and evolving and changing. But if you never start the question to begin with, it's kind of weird if you think about it. You're walking around in a body and you don't feel like you know who you are, but you're the only person you're ever going to be. So you should probably figure out who that is.
Madison.
I
mean, people can't see me like shaking my head. I've been shaking my head for the past like 2 minutes as you were talking, but like, oh my God. And you know what? Someone can take that step now to ask why. Why was I annoyed when, I got this phone call or I had a meeting at work and it made me feel a certain way? Why? I think asking why can literally start right now. So I think that's such helpful advice.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, this conversation has been amazing. Me personally, I love deep conversation. So like I was here for all of it. I feel like we could probably talk for another hour, but I'm not going to do that to you. I'm curious, what is in store for you? Hopefully San Diego. And what is in store for the Fearless Chase?
Girl, fingers crossed on San Diego. Everyone send all your best thoughts, prayers, vibes, whatever you've got, hand them my way for San Diego, because I have never in my life been to a place where I have felt more like home. We were there for 5 weeks last year in Oceanside specifically. And as soon as I got off the plane, I had never been there before. And I was like, oh, I'm home. Like that's such a weird thing when you have that like connection to something. Fun fact that also happened the first time I had Thai food. I was like, wow, this is comfort food. And I had never had it before. So anyways, so I'm just listening to that. I'm listening to that draw towards there and trying to figure out how I can get there because I just feel like there is something good there for me. Not that there can't be good stuff here, but anyways, it's a whole other conversation.
No, we're moving in that direction.
And then as far as the Fearless Chase, I am just like, I've got a couple of different markets coming up. So I'm not sure when this episode's airing, but I will be in Austin the weekend before Thanksgiving. So at the Futurefront Market. So if you want to come stop by and see me, being in person and doing fun vendor markets is probably the most fun thing that I ever do ever. So yeah, that's what we got going on.
Speaking from experience, like you radiate sunshine and positivity. Like when I see you, I've only seen you twice, but still like both times I saw you, like, I was like, oh, she's amazing.
Oh, you're so sweet. That's definitely in my element for sure. Like, yeah. It just makes me shimmy my shoulders because I just get so excited about it. And it's just funny because like, again, I would have never thought that this would be my dream life, that this would be my like definition of success, at least for this portion of my life. But it is, and I'm working towards it. And it's like, it's rocking and rolling, baby. It's a good time.
I love it. I love it. How and where can listeners connect with you? And I will definitely be sharing the Fearless Chase website in the show notes, but where do you want people to connect with you?
We've got our own podcast, which Ray has also been on. It is the Fearless Chase podcast. And then I personally love hanging out on TikTok or Instagram. It's at Madison Anaya. And we also have our shop Instagram, which is at the Fearless Chase Co. So be sure to swing by, grab a cute t-shirt or a tote or candle. We've got all kinds of fun stuff in there. So be sure to check it out.
My candle is literally here at my desk. So
yay!
Yes, it smells so good. So good. But Madison, thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for sharing and being real and raw and vulnerable and having these conversations with me. I really hope it helps someone. I have no doubt it will, but I appreciate you so much.
Oh, I love you and I appreciate you. And thank you so much for asking me.
Thank you so much for tuning into City Girl Savings today. I hope you feel empowered and inspired to master your money as you make your way to your dream life. Make sure you subscribe so you're the first to know when a new episode comes out. I truly value your thoughts and feedback, so please leave a review and let me know how this podcast has impacted you. Can't wait to chat soon and make it a great day.